Let me just start out by telling everybody good morning and welcome to the Water Utility Association webinar. Our webinar today is focused on providing educational tools for our members and non-members, water utilities throughout Arizona regarding customer communication, messaging, and strategies in anticipation of the first ever declaration of shortage on the Colorado River. This is something that we consider very important for all of our members and for the entire state. But it's also something that we need to be able to address for our customers. Before we begin, I just want to say what the Water Utility Association is. We are the largest water association of investor-owned water and wastewater utilities in Arizona. The Water Utilities Association membership includes large Class A regulated utilities, wastewater providers in Arizona. We also have many small water utilities that are regulated by the Corporation Commission. Collectively, our members provide water and wastewater services to over 1 million Arizonans throughout the state. So the issues of a declaration of shortage will be something that will come to our attention through our customers, because they're going to be reading a lot about this in the coming weeks. We're pleased to present this membership education webinar, and we're delighted that many of our elected officials, regulators, members of the public are viewing our membership webinar today. If you're interested in becoming a member, if you are a water provider and you are not a member of the Water Utility Association, please visit us at WUAAZ.org. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Without their generous financial support or their expertise, it would be very difficult for us to do a program like this. We also want to thank the Water Utilities Association Board for their guidance and support. Today, our webinar is addressing customer communications related to the first ever shortage declaration on Colorado River. Very important topic. A shortage declaration is expected to come out soon. The announcement will generate extensive media coverage, and that's going to cover the entire state, even though not everybody is directly receiving Colorado River water. Our webinar is designed to assist water utilities in planning and executing effective customer communication to successfully answer customer questions and assure our customers that Arizona Water Utilities will continue to provide safe, reliable service throughout the shortage declaration. So our presentation today, our keynote speaker will be Patrick Dent from the Central Arizona Project. And he is the Assistant General Manager on Water Policy, and he will be describing what the situation is. Then it's going to be followed by our panelists, Shayna Shea from Global Water Resources, Rebecca Stockholm from EPCOR, Sarah Alloway from Liberty Utilities, Melinda Wimington of Arizona Water Company. And they're going to be discussing how to talk to our customers, how to address some of the answers, which will be, conservation, for example. So there's a lot of important elements as to how we talk to our customers. And toward the end, finally, we will have a chairwoman. We're just pleased and honored to have her here. Leah Marquez Peterson is joining us as a guest to give us her observation and her closing remarks from the perspective of the Arizona Corporation Commission, which regulates our utilities. At this time, I wish to turn our interactive discussion over to our Masters of Ceremony, Megan Grable. Megan is a partner and leader of Osborne Maildon Energy, Water, and Utility Law Practice Group. Megan?
Thanks very much, Arturo. Okay. Thanks very much, Arturo. And Matt, hopefully we'll be able to hear from you again at the end if we get the audio fixed. I'm pleased to join you all, and I look forward to hopefully learning a lot myself as this presentation continues. Before I introduce our first speaker, Mr. Patrick Dent from the Central Arizona Project, I'd like to invite the participants to ask any questions that they may have throughout the presentation today using the Q&A function. And to the extent we are able to address them during the 90 minutes that we have, we will. If not, we will provide written comments that will be posted to the WUAA website. So with that, Mr. Patrick Dent is Central Arizona Project's Assistant General Manager of Water Policy. Patrick is a registered professional engineer in Arizona. He joined CAP in 2000 in the Water Operations Group as an engineer focused on system modeling and engineering support for the operations of the CAP aqueduct. He has held numerous leadership positions, including supervising CAP's engineering resources and water systems groups. Recharge Operations, as the manager of water operations, was responsible for 24/7 real-time operations of the CAP system. Patrick's role at CAP has consistently been connected to the administration of CAP's water delivery contracts and the nexus between water policy and the operation of the CAP system. In October of 2019, he became the Director of Water Policy to oversee Colorado River programs, resource planning and analysis, and the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. His group is responsible for long-range planning, policy analysis, development, and program implementation for the CAP service area, the Colorado River, and the K-Grid. Patrick, we're very pleased to have you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Megan. Maybe just ask you to verify that you can hear me and see my presentation.
Sure can.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I appreciate that introduction, and I appreciate having a few minutes to speak on the webinar today. And as Arturo indicated, as we are preparing for a shortage declaration in 2022, I think it's helpful that we can have some of these discussions and share some information for all of us to get an understanding of some changes that will be happening. So as Arturo mentioned, we're working towards a 2022 shortage declaration. It's not official yet. I think we anticipate that next Monday, Reclamation will release the August 24-month study, which is the forecast for the operation of the Colorado River system reservoirs. And that study will show that the water level in Lake Mead is projected to be below 1075 at the end of this calendar year. And consequently, that falls within the rules of shortage declaration within Arizona. I would like to make sure I can move my screen here. I would like to maybe talk about why the change now. Certainly Lake Mead and Lake Powell have been at lower water levels, I'll put it that way, in recent years. And over the last several years, CEP, Arizona on-river users, California and Nevada, and even Mexico have been working together to prop up the water levels in Lake Mead, in part to stall off or put off a declaration of a shortage. So a little bit about what I'm going to share today is what's changed here recently, and how is that shifting our trajectory in terms of the water supply that's available to Arizona from the Colorado River. I'll start with last winter. Fall 2020, winter and spring of 2021 was a very low year on the Colorado River watershed. We're now through and have knowledge of the April through July, which is typically the high runoff period into the Colorado River system, and it's turning out to be the second lowest runoff on average. The April through July inflow forecast is to be 25% of the 30-year average, but what we've actually observed is it's been actually lower than that. July specifically was only just over 200,000 acre feet, about 19% of the 30-year average. Water year 2021 is again expected to be very low, maybe 30% of the average supply of the 30-year history. The graphic I've shared here shows maybe a comparison of what we've observed in the orange bars compared to what the average is. And again, it's just a very, very dry water year on the Colorado River watershed. The impact of that is, of course, the water that we have stored in the Colorado River system to serve water users throughout the basin. Here's a 30-year, or I guess a 40-year schematic of, I'm not adding very well, 2020 minus 60. Shouldn't try to do math during a live presentation, but Here's a history of the combined storage in Lake Powell and Lake Mead. The storage in Lake Mead is shown in the blue on the bottom, and the storage in Lake Powell is shown in the gray on the top. Lake Powell first filled in 1980, and then spilled significantly in the early 80s, for those of you who remember that wetter time period. The drought that we have been experiencing has really been a 20-year drought. Some of us it certainly has been the lowest yield on the watershed in the historic record, but it's now really in its 22nd year. And you can see in the early time frame around 2000, kind of the dramatic reduction in shortage, largely in Lake Powell, but then consequently Lake Mead has declined per the operating rules of the two systems on the Colorado River Reservoir. And if I can direct your attention to the far right of the slide, the reduced inflow in 2021 has really reduced the amount of storage in Lake Powell, such that the releases from Lake Powell are going to further reduce the water levels in Lake Mead. And so the drought, per the operating rules, will have an impact both on Lake Powell and Lake Mead. So Lake Mead's operating guidelines require that reductions to water users occur once certain water levels are reached within the reservoir. Of course, for a tier 1 shortage, that's elevation 1075 in Lake Mead. We have been projected to be in about the mid to low 1060s, but I'm certainly anxious to see what the study says on next Monday for the actual determination of the shortage. Because we'll be below the shortage trigger line, what that will require is a 512,000 acre foot reduction to Arizona. There will be reductions in Nevada as well, but they'll be relatively modest to those reductions in Arizona, in part because Arizona is a larger user of Colorado water. All of those reductions will be felt by the Central Arizona Project, both through the priority system of Colorado River water and agreements that are in place with other Colorado River water users in Arizona. CAP will be taking the bulk of that reduction. What that will mean is CAP will go from a normal supply of about 1.6 million acre feet down to about 1.1 million acre feet. Now, as part of the recently passed drought contingency plan, agreements have been put in place to offset a portion of that reduced water supply. Some through water that has been made available for different agreements, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and others are taking direct financial consideration. On this particular schematic that I'm showing, one is shown on the bar chart what the reduction to the CAP water supply is, and then there's an orange bar there that indicates some additional water that will be taken out of water or money that will be made available to some water users to offset a portion of those shortages. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the DCP mitigation commitments. I won't do this in great detail, but maybe the takeaway point is the drought contingency plan was put in place to offset some of those reductions, and they change year by year. And so here's a schematic that we've used since the implementation of the drought contingency plan. For 2022, NIA contractors and subcontractors, and NIA refers to a specific priority of CAP water users that are both municipal and tribal water users in that group, will be fully mitigated, again, either with water or financially. And then there will be some agricultural water users within the CAP system that will receive about 100,000 acre feet of water. If the drought continues into 2023 and beyond, those mitigation commitments are reduced through time. So 2022 is a bit of a unique year in terms of how the impacts of this first shortage will be felt. This is a little bit of a complicated schematic about how the mitigation efforts are accomplished. But I think what's important, the things I wanted to maybe share with this group that were important, is some of the water that will be used to mitigate CAP water users will actually come from water that we've stored previously in Lake Mead. And we call that offset. So we will be taking out some additional water above what will have been allocated, but that was water that was offset or stored in the reservoir through agreements and conservation activities of other water users, so that it would be set aside for this mitigation step as we go forward. The Lower Basin Drought Contingency Plan also has some additional provisions in it, and I don't mean to understate the severity of the hydrology in 2021. The amount of water that has actually come into PAL being well below the average has caused the forecasts in the near term, in the next 24 months, to potentially go below what we'll call critical elevations in both Lake Powell and Lake Mead. I'd like to focus on Lake Mead for just a moment. The shortage volumes that are anticipated in 2022 will be aligned with both the drought contingency plan and with the storage guidelines on the Colorado River. They will require the 512,000 acre feet for this specific year. If water levels continue to decline in Lake Mead, then there will be additional shortage tiers and additional reductions that will occur, also in accordance with those guidelines. If the hydrology continues to be dry, and Lake Mead levels continue to decline, there are additional provisions in the drought contingency plan for consultation among the states and reclamation and with the Secretary of Interior to look at if there should be additional steps taken. So we've been watching the study very closely for the appearance of Lake Mead going below elevation at 1030. So far, that hasn't been the case, but of course, we'll be watching with some anxiousness as the 24-month study is released here next week to see what the outlook is, of course, for not only the shortage declaration, but where the Colorado River system is headed, and if those additional consultations will need to be undertaken. The upper basin, Lake Powell, has similar provisions to the 1030 provision that is contained in Lake Mead. And that is about critical elevations in Lake Powell relative to power generation. The provision is called the Drought Response Operating Agreement, and forecasts for Lake Powell, given the dry runoff in 2020 and 2021, have already got the upper basin folks talking with reclamation about additional releases from upper basin reservoirs to help prop up the elevation in Lake Powell. Those agreements are in place, but they have released a relatively modest amount, or will be through the end of 2021, some additional water from upper basin reservoirs, primarily Flaming Gorge, and some from the Aspinall unit around the Gunnison River, to let water flow into Lake Powell to help keep Lake Powell a little bit higher. So far, these actions are expected to increase the water level in Lake Powell by about 3 feet. Of course, as the drought continues, there will continue to be discussions between the upper basin states and reclamation on what additional actions, if any, may need to occur. So a few key takeaways from my comments today. I know there's a lot there, and I'm going to restate a few of those, but it is certainly the turning point has been the hydrology over the past 12 months. I've let you know where that falls in terms of the historic record and how that has impacted the storage in Lake Powell and Lake Mead. The forecasts indicate, and we expect based on the releases from Lake Powell and the water uses in the lower basin, that both Lake Powell and Lake Mead will continue to decline, meaning that hydrologic shortage is being shared among the Colorado River Basin reservoirs. The interim guidelines and the drought contingency plan will be in effect in 2022. Arizona's reduction will be 512,000 acre feet, and that will solely affect water users within the CEP system. Primarily, those will be agricultural users, with some of the tribal and municipal water users having their supplies mitigated for just 2022. As we continue to monitor the seriousness of the hydrologic situation and frankly, the drought in the greater Western United States, the basin states will continue to consult and take additional steps if the drought continues. I would expect those consultations to continue and likely intensify throughout the year once the 24-month study is released next week. So I think those are the main things that I hope to share with you today. I hope to be asked back again in a better hydrologic scenario and maybe share some better news, some more favorable news. I know these are serious hydrologic situation on the Colorado River, and significant preparation here at CEP has been done to work with our water users to help them have information about the changing hydrologic conditions, but also for our water contractors to have an understanding and knowledge about what the expectations will be for the next operating year. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm interested to hear the remaining panel discussion today and understand that CEP will do its best to provide information about the hydrologic situation and the impacts to our customers as the drought continues. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Megan.
Thanks very much, Patrick. We do have a couple of questions for you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to hold those until the end. And as I indicated before, if we're not able to answer those live today, we'll definitely answer them and post them on the website. And with that, I would invite our four panelists to please turn on their cameras and join us today. Our panel today is talking about our WUAA utility members addressing our utility customers regarding the shortage declaration that was declared. And with us, we have Sarah Alloway, who is the Water Efficiency Program Manager for Liberty. Sarah develops, implements, and evaluates water conservation programs, leads drought management, and aids Liberty in achieving its sustainability goals. So welcome, Sarah. Next, we have Rebecca Stenholm, who is the Director for Public Affairs for EPCOR USA. Rebecca ensures that EPCOR's business initiatives align with corporate branding. The breadth of her reach includes customer communications, marketing, media relations, public relations, external affairs, crisis communications, community relations, and corporate responsibility. Additionally, Rebecca's team manages internal communications for EPCOR's employees across the United States. Thank you for joining us today, Rebecca. Third, we have Melinda Whittington, who is a Senior Operations Analyst for Arizona Water Company. Melinda administers a wide variety of data collection and reporting activities, provides professional level research, and manages customer experience projects. Her work supports water efficiency projects, water resource planning, and customer communications in Arizona Water Company service areas across the state. Thank you for joining us today, Melinda. And finally, we have Shana Shea, who is the Water Resources and Conservation Specialist for Global Water Resources. Shana manages Global Water's conservation program and assists in water resources planning, accounting, and regulatory compliance. These efforts support the total water management framework that Global Water Resources uses to promote sustainable communities in areas where growth may outpace the existing potable water supply. So thank you for joining us, Shana. So I think first I'll turn back to Sarah and ask a couple of questions. First, tell us a little bit about Liberty Utilities.
Yeah, so Liberty is a regulated water, wastewater, natural gas, and electric utility company, and we provide utility management, service, and support to small and mid-sized communities across the United States. Here in Arizona, we have 7 water and wastewater service areas with over 40,000 water connections and over 30,000 wastewater connections. Our drinking water comes from 100% groundwater. And then we utilize reclaimed water where we're able to recharge the aquifer that we pump from and for irrigation.
Great. And what is Liberty doing to address the declaration?
So we do a lot of things ahead of the declaration. Even though we do not get water from the Colorado River, we do believe that we are responsible for being good stewards of our water resources. So some of the things that we have done prior to the declaration being anticipated was we monitor our community's water needs and we manage the water supply to meet those. We recharge the aquifers with reclaimed water so that helps in times of drought. We do closely monitor our drought conditions, and this happens at a regional level, a state level, a local level, and even down to a system level. We have our drought preparedness plans in place, and this is for each water service area, and we look at each system specific so that we can tailor that to the system that's in place. We also follow a water use efficiency plan, and this actually analyzes our conservation programs and looks at a cost benefit analysis to us as the utility and to our communities that we serve to make sure that we're maximizing water savings. And then we also offer tools and resources to our customers to use water efficiently. For the declaration in particular, we did take some additional steps to those things that we do on a normal basis. So some of those extra steps that we took, we held discussions and presentations internally with our customer service staff and with our operations. They're the front line, so they're most likely going to get the customer questions and concerns first. So we wanted to be able to equip them with the tools and resources to be able to answer those questions. We also went ahead and we updated our drought resources on our website that it's now more easily accessible. Our customer service and operations teams can utilize it, and customers can find information to dig more in depth into what they're looking for. With that update, we did also create an FAQ document of things we thought our customers may be interested in knowing about the declaration, about drought in Arizona, and what Liberty's role is in this. So that FAQ document is something that they can refer to hopefully address the majority of those concerns they may have from things that they're seeing in the news. So some of the additional things we've done, we are part of collaborations and conversations with other entities to go ahead and be informed on what's happening, but also align our messaging across Arizona. No matter where you get your water from, we want there to be that consistent messaging for residents to be reassured during this time. We do have some future efforts scheduled if the declaration does happen next week, including further customer communication through email, social media, and even local newspapers, and then also making our water efficiency programs more visible for them to participate. So overall, our goal with the anticipated shortage is to reassure our customers about our water supply, but then also encourage participation in those water efficiency programs so that we're able to protect our water resources for future generations.
Very interesting, thank you. What has Liberty done to prepare for drought and shortage?
So a lot of what we have done to prepare is something that we've done on a normal basis ahead of this declaration. And that does include monitoring our drought conditions, having those drought preparedness plans in place, utilizing that water use efficiency plan, those things that I had mentioned previously, those do help us in times of drought. So it's being prepared ahead of time and having the tools to implement if we do need to call a different type of drought stage.
Great. And how can water utilities address customer concerns about water supplies and the need for water conservation?
Yeah, that's a great part of this conversation is conservation and water efficiency. So Arizona as a state has already been in a drought for over 20 years. So this declaration is with the Colorado River specifically. So already as a whole state, we do want to work together to protect our water resources. And this declaration has provided an opportunity to highlight conservation and efficiency and to encourage our customers to participate. We have had some people express concerns or have questions about the declaration, and regardless of where their water comes from. So Liberty, although we're 100% groundwater, they still want to feel reassured and they want to be able to participate and be part of the solution. So it's kind of conservation and efficiency are solutions to provide to your customers. Conservation and efficiency are a way of life here in Arizona, living in the desert, and it's always been part of Arizona's long-term water management. So at this point, people seem more receptive and willing to learn and implement different conservation practices. Personally, we've had a lot more customer participation in programs, a lot more reach out for resources and wanting to really utilize that to increase their water efficiency. as well as we've been able to reach new customer bases that we haven't been able to before. They may not have been interested in times past for programs, but now they want to be part of it. And so it's a great time to create those new partnerships to further efficiency efforts, as well as continue our long-term water management strategies. So essentially, conservation is a great way to provide that solution to your customers when they are concerned, when they do have questions, that they do understand, yes, maybe we do need to conserve, but then they need guidance on how to do that. So one of the things that is actually provided in a toolkit that people will have access to is conservation tools and resources that are widely available for all utilities, regardless of what each utility currently has to provide. And those resources will help customers with whatever resources or tips they're looking for indoor and outdoor savings. So basically, to sum that up, using water wisely does increase our resiliency as a state. So regardless of the anticipated shortage, conservation and water efficiency will always play an important part in Arizona's long-term management strategy. And conservation and efficiency really are our way of life living here in the desert.
Thanks, Sarah. I realized you mentioned before that Liberty has an FAQ sheet that they've prepared. What are some common questions that residents have about the anticipated shortage declaration, and what are you doing to address them?
So some of the most common questions that I've gotten so far are things like, are we going to run out of water, or is my water going to be restricted? So I think that first and foremost, we need to reassure our customers and residents that we are okay, that we are not running out of water, and there is no immediate impact to our municipal water supplies. Arizona has been preparing and is prepared for a shortage on the Colorado River. So I do think that it's important that we make sure that they're aware of that this is something that we have been planning for a long time. Some of the things that Arizona as a state has done is investing in infrastructure and water supplies, underground water storage, and conservation programs. Going back to that previous question about those different offerings, conservation and efficiency has been part of that strategy as well. Some of the other questions that I've received are things like, what is the city doing, or what is the utility doing that provides the water? And for that, we like to be very open with our customers and say, here's what we do offer, here's what we do to make sure that we are providing safe and reliable services, even in times of with the declaration or while Arizona has been in a drought. Being able to address that and being open about what your utility has done really helps to create that trust between the residents and the utility. And then last but not least, I think that the last question that I've gotten a lot is, what can I do? When people are concerned, they want to act, they want to be involved and be part of the solution, which I think is a great opportunity. I'm glad that they want to be part of it. And so again, it's using those water efficiency and conservation resources and tools and getting them to participate, showing them that they do have a part in our long-term water management strategies here in Arizona, and giving them the resources to do so.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Appreciate your perspective today. Rebecca, can I ask you a few questions?
Absolutely.
First, please tell us about EPCOR.
So EPCOR is the largest regulated utility here in Arizona. We actually provide water, wastewater, natural gas, and commercial wholesale water services across 3 states, also in New Mexico and Texas. So we're serving roughly 780,000 people all told. Most of those are here in Arizona, and obviously our reach is across different areas of the state. We have some small service areas down in Tubac. We have a large number of service areas here in the Phoenix metro area and other parts as well. So when we look at our service landscape, we're delivering about 78 million gallons of water every day.
Wow. And what is EPCOR doing to address the shortage declaration?
Well, let me start by saying I think Sarah's going to be a hard act to follow. I kind of wish I was the 4th one on this list because I think, she really nailed a lot of the really important points. But in terms of what EPCOR is doing, it's something that it doesn't start today. It certainly doesn't start with the declaration being made. We've been planning for this, like Sarah said, as a state, as individual water providers for years, for decades. And that's really the key to success, is making sure we do have that plan for the long term and that we can adjust and pivot as we need to. Now, if we're talking specifically about addressing the declaration and how we're communicating with our customers, I think, it's really one of the challenges I think we run into is customers today have so many different options in how they receive their information, what they want to receive, how fast they want to receive it. And we're also dealing with varied demographics in different areas. And some communities may be much more water conscious than others. I think one of our challenges certainly is that as a state, we've never really had water curtailment challenges. So our smart planning and our long-term reach have really been, I think, part of our challenge is we've done so well in that vein. So I think now as we start to hear more and more about a declaration coming out and water concerns, and it's becoming more prevalent, I think there's more of an appetite amongst some areas of customer base where there may not have been an appetite before in terms of, as Sarah was saying, what can I do to help? And really, what does this mean for me? But in terms of what we're doing specifically for the declaration, we've always had an ongoing conversation with our customers about water safety and reliability. That's core to what we do. That's the service we provide. And so from our perspective, that's a message that should always be there. It shouldn't be new because there's a declaration coming. And so what we need to do is really elevate those efforts. It's hard when you're communicating the same message consistently. Sometimes you get to a point where you don't want it to just be white noise and you really want it to resonate. We're certainly at that point where with a declaration, you need to bring people's attention back to it. So it's looking at the different tools you have, whether it's bill inserts or it's, the community meetings. We have a great water resources team that goes out and does presentations and gets into the schools. And a key part of that is not just educating on what we have today, but it's really bringing all of those audiences into play in terms of how they can be a part of the solution. We need to be accessible to our media partners. And so in some markets, it's something where you're working a little bit more closely. In other markets where it's a larger reach and you have a larger number of providers, there are a lot of voices all speaking from the same page and what we can do to help. We've also tried some other things. Last fall, we put together a video that really focused on the message of water and safety and reliability. I think one of the things that we're all coming off of is in the pandemic, water became a really critical concern, making sure it was available for public health and safety. And now we're heading into a new phase where we're focused very much on declaration and shortage and supply. But at the end of the day, the message should still be the same. Your water is safe, your water is reliable. And so we found the video was really effective in doing that. And it reached certain audiences that may not be reading bill inserts and things like that. So I think it's really, it's customization. But we've also started some proactive declaration specific pieces, whether that's, updating the section that we have on our website called The Value of Water. We have an entire section dedicated to water resources and the drought and what that looks like. We also have ongoing materials, and we are in this billing month, customers now are actually receiving a very personalized message on how they should be reassured or feel confident that their water is going to be there and that we've got their back.
That's very interesting. And to that point, how do we address customers' concerns to reassure them about our water supply while at the same time emphasizing the need to continue to conserve?
A really good question. I think we all kind of face that, right? And again, I think we have a unique challenge. We here in Arizona have not had to change our lifestyle significantly with water curtailments. We enjoy our pools, we enjoy our landscaping, and it's very counterintuitive to who we are as a state. Now, over in the past several decades, certainly we've made huge strides. Xeriscape landscaping, which may not have been even a consideration a couple of decades ago, is really more and more the norm. HOAs, when they put together their CCRs and their recommendations for what landscaping should look like, are being much more conscious of water usage and what vegetation is more appropriate. So we certainly have all of that, but here we are facing a declaration, and we've never really felt a little bit of pain when it comes to water before. So it's that candid conversation with our customers. It's, we've got everything ready. We're going to be fine, but here's what we need you to do. Here's how we need you to be our partner. Here's how you can be involved. So there's that nice balance between transparency and reassurance, but also it's that ask, here's some great tools. Here's how you can be a part of our future solutions.
That's great. Thank you. Water topics in Arizona can get really complicated and technical very quickly. So in your experience, what are customers looking for? What do they need from their utilities? How can we simplify the message we need to convey to them so that the key points really resonate?
Well, I think what they're looking for is certainty and reassurance. They want to know that if they call and say, is this going to impact me? We need to be able to tell them, you're going to be fine. You don't need to worry. But there are some key things that we as water providers really need to remember is that we have to be speaking to what the customer needs and what the customer wants, not necessarily what we think they want and how we think they want to hear it. So we're all experts in this industry, and like any industry, we can get very, very caught up in the technical jargon and details and nuances that are very important to us as industry experts, and we're going to pay attention to all of those pieces. But we need to be simple. We need to be straightforward. We need to really hone it down to 3 main points. We've planned for this. We have a range of water sources to tap so that we're not solely dependent on one source. And we put as much water back in the ground as we can. So it's really simplifying it, making sure that we're staying out of those weeds that we can so easily get pulled into. Again, it's those 3, maybe 4 sound bites if you really want to stretch it. And it's a conversation. We often talk about our what we do in terms of saying things like we recharge 7 million gallons, 7 MGD of treated effluent back into the aquifer. But what we really should be saying to the customer is, or we should be comfortable saying to the customer is, we put 7 million gallons of water back in the ground every day. It's really about simplifying the message so that it's clear and it's coming over across. When we overcomplicate it, we're making it harder for the audience, and we're taking away a little bit of that comfort level they may have with it.
That makes sense. That KISS training, keep it simple.
Yes.
How do you train your internal team to be prepared for this topic so that the message that they send to customers is factual and reassuring?
I think Sarah hit on some of the really key points. It's messaging, it's things like that. From my perspective, it's always very much a comfort level thing. So if someone isn't comfortable with the content they're speaking about, that uncertainty can come across in the delivery. And how you're saying something can matter as much as what you're saying. So we certainly want that to be factual. We want it to be reassuring, but we need to make sure that our teams have the resources they need and the comfort level with it to speak to it. Our customer care specialists are not necessarily our water resources specialists. So they may not have the same technical depth that the water resources team has, but we need them to be as comfortable with the content. So I always advise people when I'm talking about communications and topics, any topic really, is think of it in terms of a conversation with a friend or a family member. How would you explain this to someone who isn't a water expert, doesn't work in the water industry? And I often use my own mother as an example. Highly educated woman who spent her entire career as a teacher. So teaching people, teaching them about new concepts, but she's not a water expert. She's a customer receiving the message. So I need to understand, is it resonating with her? Does it matter to her? Is it clear? Is it too much? Does she even care? What's it missing? So certainly I think that's something that we all need to think about. And when we're thinking about these messages is the end user, the end receiver of this content. Your audiences are going to be different. In the water industry, you can be more technical, you can get into those details. But when you're speaking directly to customers, it really needs to be something they will receive easily and that's coming across clearly.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. I appreciate your insight. Melinda, you're up. You ready?
Gee, I sure hope so. Hi, Megan. How are you?
Good, thanks. Melinda, tell us a little bit about Arizona Water Company.
Sure. So Arizona Water Company is the second largest investor-owned water utility in Arizona. So currently we are serving 22 water systems. We're going to add 2 more at the end of August. And we're roughly at about 100,000 connections. So for the members here on the panel or out in the audience who aren't familiar with us, we serve a wide variety of service areas across Arizona, from mining communities in Bisbee, Miami, Superior. We serve Sierra Vista and Luke Air Force Base adjacent White Tank service area. We're in tourist destinations, Oracle, Sedona, Lakeside, Overguard, and then the super fast growing spots right now, Apache Junction, Casa Grande, and the city of Coolidge in Pinal County. So we have a wide variety of service areas, small, large, inside an active management area, outside of it. But the one thing that does bring them all together is that we do serve 100% groundwater at this time to all of our customers. So as I was thinking about this, it was kind of begging the question, like, what am I doing on this panel? But ultimately, Arizona Water does have 4 CAP contracts for municipal and industrial water. And we've been utilizing those contracts to offset our pumping. And then we also do have some turf customers and power generating station customers who utilize the CAP water directly off the canals. So luckily at this point, we know that this declaration is going to affect ag in a big way, particularly in our largest service area, which is Pinal County. Luckily at this point, we're able to continue to work with our ag partners to do groundwater savings with them. So we provide wet water, they put it on the ground, and we're able to offset our pumping with it. So that's good news-ish for now. And we hope that, like Patrick had mentioned earlier, that next year there's better news. But for right now, we're in a holding pattern and we're good.
Thank you. What is Arizona Water Company doing with the declaration?
Sure. So we've been working on a few things that are loosely related to the declaration. So we recently completed a transport and treat agreement with Maricopa Water District and EPCOR to take delivery of fully treated CAP water through the White Tank Regional Water Treatment Plant and serve that to our White Tank service area. So that was a really big deal. And some folks were like, well, what does that have to do really with the declaration? And for us, utilizing our CAP allocation as fully as we possibly can now with that renewable resource helps us with saving the groundwater that we need for a future that isn't so renewable. We've also been working with our turf partners who've been using that non-potable cap water to make the switch to highly treated effluent, primarily from Liberty in the Gold Canyon area. So we're trying to encourage that group of folks to make that switch. And then we've also been storing our CAP water underground at our own storage facility in Pinal County. And it's near Coolidge to offset that groundwater pumping that's happening there. So all of the items I mentioned aren't just in response to the declaration itself. It's like all of our colleagues here, part of water resource plans that are sort of ever evolving. And we're just getting to highlight them at this time.
Great, thank you. What type of shortage communications has Arizona Water Company implemented?
So for us, like Sarah and Rebecca mentioned, and probably Shana as well, we'll say that we did put together some FAQs and responses. Something that was a little bit different is Arizona Water has been really focused on becoming the de facto water department for the communities that we serve. So the communications with our community leaders and government staff has been a lot more open than it has been in the past. So in that vein, we tried to put together FAQs that were going to be specific for sort of water people to be able to discuss with other water people and our customers. And then we also put together a packet of FAQs that was a little bit more focused on what a government worker or an elected official might experience from a constituent. So they're similar, but not quite the same. So we've put those out to all of our offices. We have 11 of them here in Arizona. And then we sent out through those district managers to the communities that we serve so that everybody could sort of be on the same page.
That's great, thank you. We heard a little bit from Rebecca on this question, but how does Arizona Water Company train your internal team to be prepared so that the messaging you have with customers is factual and reassuring on the declaration?
Sure. So the nice thing, and I think that most everybody on this panel will indicate as well, that our customer service staff has been with the company for a long time. So we definitely know a thing or two about water, which is great. Everybody is super knowledgeable. They know their communities. They live in their communities. So we've been just trying to provide resources and support. We know that the questions are coming, but because we've been groundwater all of this time, the focus has really not necessarily been on shortage as it has been on conservation, like Sarah, Rebecca, and then Shoshana will also mention as she comes up. So we've just tried to keep the answers, like Rebecca mentioned, just kind of short and simple with a framework for them. So we've got customer service FAQs, management FAQs, and then if neither of those answers satisfies a customer, then they can always get transferred over to Phoenix and we will research and provide answers. We don't expect our CSRs to get into a 10-minute conversation with folks about, you know, what's happening out there in the world, but certainly if they need that reassurance from us, we're more than happy to make it. So I feel really good about it. Our customer service and conservation groups has been working tirelessly this whole entire time just to make sure that the message is positive. I think our communities do a tremendous job with conservation already. And so just continuing that on as it relates to groundwater and the Colorado River has been really, really great so far. And we anticipate it continuing.
Thank you. Has Arizona Water Company been working with industry organizations to kind of solidify the messaging across the state? And if so, how has that worked?
Yeah, so it's been awesome, actually. So we're part of this group, obviously, Water Users Association or Water Utilities Association, pardon me. And then we're also part of the West Valley Water Association. You know, we attend all of the meetings that we possibly can attend. And what that's been able to do, even though we're not members of the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, all of these folks coming together and talking about it and then working as organizations together has made it amazing. So, you know, West Valley Water put something together, AMWA put something together, and all of those things. And now we're putting something together for CSRs and folks to be able to use, gives us a really cohesive message because ultimately, you know, newspapers need to sell newspapers, right? So I feel like we're the balance that you might not get from some of the media that's out there. So, you know, we're utilizing our social networks and our websites and things like that, and then working with each other so that we're all like, yep, do we agree that this is a good message? Yes, and then we can put it out.
Thank you very much, Melinda. It's very interesting, insightful. So last but certainly not least is Shana Shea with Global Water. Good morning, Shana.
Good morning. I'm hope that I won't be too repetitive because there's been so much great information already shared. But I'll do my best.
Sounds good. Well, tell us a little bit about Global Water Resources.
Sure. Well, Global Water Resources is an investor-owned water resource management company. So we own and operate 15 water, wastewater, and recycled water utilities across 3 different counties in Arizona, so pretty widespread across the state. And the company itself was really founded with the overall goal to address water scarcity. And that's why we have taken what we refer to an integrated approach to water resource management that we refer to as total water management. And this term, total water management, is really meaning managing the entire water cycle. And we do that by owning and operating the water, wastewater, and recycled water utilities within the same geographic area. And this really helps us to better conserve water and to maximize the total economic and social value of water. It's always our goal that we are using the right water for the right use.
Thank you. What is Global Water Resources doing to address the declaration?
Yeah, well, like the rest of the panelists here and pretty much everyone in Arizona who manages water resources, we have anticipated this shortage for a long time, right? But we did want to make sure that we did want to make sure that everyone who is living and working in the communities that we serve are staying informed about what's happening on the Colorado River. And so in order to do that, we developed an internal and an external communication strategy. So internally, we first started with a training for our customer service representatives, as well as some of our other customer-facing employees who, might receive questions from customers while they're out in the field. And as everybody here knows, the CSR teams are always busy. So we did try to be flexible and tailor this training to fit any range from 15 minutes to 60 minutes. But the overall goal of the training was to provide a little bit more details about the history of the Colorado River, the importance to the Colorado River in Arizona, so that they felt well equipped to answer any questions that may come their way. And then obviously we offered the water resources team as a resource to come to us if they have any deeper questions there. So in addition to our availability, we also supported that training with, like everybody else has, a script outlining some customer questions that might be expected with some appropriate responses. We did utilize the CAP fact sheets that were created and the other communications pieces from AMWA that are all provided in this toolkit on the WUAA website, so that it's accessible to everyone if you're interested in finding it there. But so internally, we did all of this to sort of make sure that our customer service team felt ready for this situation and knew what was going on. And then externally, we did develop a marketing campaign that was multifaceted, attempt to utilize multiple mediums. We had some print media that went out in our largest service area, which is the city of Maricopa. So we are leveraging a magazine publication called In Maricopa, and we've been publishing articles through there, like leading up to the shortage announcement that might happen next week, so that customers were aware of what the situation was and what's going on. And then we will continue to do that after next week, once we know whether or not that is official. We also sort of scheduled a presentation circuit, so to speak. And so we had a generalized presentation that was available for global water employees to use if they're out and about talking to different stakeholders. So we have ongoing partnerships, especially in Pinal County, that we continue those open lines of communications. Obviously, we work with our city managers and keep them abreast of what's going on as far as water resources goes in the service areas that we provide water to. And then we have some presentations available for the general public. We've got a presentation scheduled for early September. It was scheduled at this time, strategically after the declaration was announced, so that we could address any residual questions that customers might have about what's going on and how we've prepared. And then we also had an online marketing campaign. So we, like similar to what Sarah was talking about, beefed up our website, have a whole new web page dedicated to information about the drought and the shortage on the Colorado River, so that customers could visit that website at their own time if they were interested in learning more. And finally, I think the most exciting for me is the email campaign that we've been working on. So this email campaign was originally designed to just be sharing information, much like the articles and the website. But we actually were we had a really good opportunity come along to partner with the American Water Works Association. So the American Water Works Association, or AWWA, is working on an AMI best practices guidebook right now. And for those of you on the line who might not know what this acronym is, AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. Basically, they're smart meters which can monitor in near real-time water use. And it can be used, this data is really, really useful for a variety of different purposes. But right now they are going through and they are talking with utilities who are known as early adopters of AMI. That qualifies us as an early adopter in the city of Maricopa. Our entire customer base has AMI framework. So we're working with this team and this consultancy called the Behavioralist to actually utilize and leverage this campaign, this email campaign, to do some customer testing and to examine the best ways for us to communicate with customers, and also to ask them to invest their time and energy in conservation. Everyone on the panel has talked about this so far, but really we have an opportunity here in a situation that might be seen as quite negative, a shortage, but we can, hopefully use this to encourage and inspire customers to, take advantage of this chance to conserve water and use it more efficiently over time. So we're really excited to see what the results of this email campaign will look like. We were doing some A/B testing to see what sort of communication resonates best with our customers and gets them excited about our new conservation e-newsletter. So look forward to that. That's all going to be published in the AWWA guidebook.
That sounds great. Thank you. How can we address customer concerns to reassure them about our water supply while still emphasizing the need for water conservation?
Yeah, it's delicate. It's a delicate balance there. We really want to sort of generate the appropriate level of concern. And we worked on this internally and created what we refer to as the drought story. And so this is really a summary of how we talk to customers about what's going on. And this formula has been very effective in our communications. And really it starts with, first of all, commending Arizonans and recognizing that we have done a pretty good job over the years of conserving water and using it efficiently. But then, present the facts. The Colorado River is likely to go into a drought. This is where we are in this time and space. Luckily, we have had time to prepare. So Arizona is ready for this. We have the tools in our toolkit to address this, a diverse water portfolio. And even though we have seen this coming, we have enough water now and into the future. And while we have this water now and into the future to thrive in Arizona, we really don't have enough water to waste. And that's why it's so important for us to bring it back to conservation and to really emphasize the importance of using water efficiently. And so this formula was what we use for most of our communications and has proven to be very effective.
Great, thank you. And we've heard from some of our other utility specialists on this, but what are you doing to train your internal team to be prepared for this topic so that the message that they send is factual and reassuring?
Well, sure. So our internal team, like I had mentioned, we've already done a lot of outreach to our team members to get them up to speed about what's happening. But in general, our utility is founded on this, what I've referred to as the total water management framework. And this approach helps us to adapt to these resource constraints and encourage thriving communities. So, the goal of this internally, and this is shared throughout our employees, is to reduce the demand on scarce non-renewable water supplies and expensive renewable water supplies by really, focusing on localizing those water resources, integrating new technologies like AMI, developing our regional management plans and continuing those communications, integrating, investing in human capital internally, like the trainings we've been doing, and then also focusing on public education. So again, implementing that conservation program that we have. And we have seen a lot of results in this. And, we recycle over 1 billion gallons of water every year. The AMI meters that customers have detected 24,000 leaks over the last year and has saved, millions, over 5 million gallons alone in 2021. So all of these efforts and our approach as a company has really proven to be effective in making sure that conservation and people are educated on this topic.
That's really interesting. Thank you. AMI seems like a very important investment.
Yes.
So quick question for you, Sarah, back to you real quickly. If customers did one thing for water conservation, what would you suggest that they do?
Yeah, that's a good one because there's so many different options. But I think that if you're going to stress one thing that could be implemented would be to find and fix leaks inside and outside of the home. On average, an average home can have over 10,000 gallons of water wasted each year from leaks. So like Shayna said, we don't have water to waste. So finding and fixing those leaks promptly is a really great way to address conservation quickly.
Great, thank you so much. And Rebecca, I know you mentioned before the importance of a communication plan. Can you talk a little bit more about the value of working your customer communication plan? I think you're muted.
Absolutely. So I think what you've heard from all four of us is really, there's a theme, I think, throughout it, is that we're not just starting now with the communications. There's very much an ongoing plan of communications that adapts as it needs to. And I think you need that roadmap. You need the roadmap for, Shayna brought it up, I think, making sure that everyone's singing from the same page. Melinda mentioned it, the message is consistent, and you want to make sure your internal team knows exactly what you're doing in terms of communications, because they're having conversations with other people. They're having presentations, those sorts of things. So developing that roadmap, what you're going to be developing, what you're going to be issuing, when you're going to do it, who your stakeholders are, who's going to help you carry that message, how you're going to carry it. You need to have that roadmap in place. And it's not just a moment in time. I think what we're all saying here is that this is an ongoing conversation that we're always going to have with our customers. And we've got to find that nice balance. I work with someone internally who used a really great word for this, that it can be a very scary headline. It can be a very negative story. But we also need to be a voice of hope and show that we've done some amazing things to bring us to this point. And that's why we haven't had to have any curtailments. But here's how we need to prepare for that next phase. And here's why it's a good future that we're looking towards. We just all need to be a part of that solution. So that plan helps keep you consistent, helps keep you focused, and it makes sure your entire team is all rowing in the same direction.
Well, that makes sense. Melinda, a quick question for you. What other types of projects is Arizona Water Company working on towards conservation?
So what we're doing is we're really partnering with the communities that we serve. We've got a new Facebook page. We have a new Instagram account, particularly in the Pinal Valley area, called Save It CG. And it was done in partnership with the Lincoln Center and also the city of Casa Grande as a three-way joint venture. So that was super exciting, and that's ongoing, just, keeping the message out there. And then of course, there are also operational efficiencies. I love the fact that Shayna mentioned the AMI. I'm so excited. I hope that we can somehow get that soon too. But also just storage capacity is a really big one for us. A lot of our service areas are sort of remote and a little bit rural. So for us, expanding the hardware of capacity has been a really good one. We have a new tank that we're trying to get built up in Sedona, and that's ongoing as we speak.
Great, thank you. Well, ladies, I think this has been a very informative and productive conversation. Obviously, our utilities are well equipped and are communicating to our customers effectively. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I do have one more question for Mr. Dent, if he is still around, from our participants or our viewers today, before we turn to Chairwoman Marquez Peterson. Patrick, are you still there?
I am. I'm happy to answer a question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the question that came from Cheryl Hubbard is, are the upper basin states experiencing lower than normal precipitation? And if so, how long has that been going on, if you know?
So thank you, Cheryl. I admit I don't have a recollection of what the precipitation has been over the last 20 years. I would expect that there have been some above average and certainly more below average in terms of actual precipitation in the basin. But more specifically, I wanted to maybe pull on a couple of points with regard to just the productivity of the basin itself. So we usually quantify the drought in terms of stream flow. And the stream flow that we've seen over the last 20 years is about 1 million to 1.5 million on average lower than the period prior. And so it's below average stream flow. And one of the things that has we've also observed, and 2021 is an excellent example of this. So in 2021, we had just under a 90% of average snowpack in the Colorado River Basin. But that only translated into 30% of runoff by the time the runoff season was completed. So one thing that we have observed, and we attribute this to a warming climate, is the efficiency of the runoff is being impacted. And that's something that is a matter of current study. We seem to be getting reliable snowpacks, but then they're not necessarily turning into stream flow or water in our reservoirs. So that's both a concerning thing and something that I would put in the bucket of, is that different over the last 20 years? So it's maybe somewhat of an indirect answer to your question, but I think an important fact and something that we're looking at. And if I could, Megan, I just wanted to add one more thing. I've really appreciated the comments from all the panelists today and all the work they've done to be prepared and inform their public and their customers. It made me think back. I believe Shana mentioned the WUAA toolkit that is helpful, and I was glad to hear she mentioned some of the materials that CEP has provided. I thought I would just add to that and point out, as a reminder for those working in the utility industry, at our board, at the CAWCD board, we do present every month on the water supply condition on the Colorado River. As well, we've added a standing item to present on the shortage and the activities and things that CEP has been undertaking. So if folks have time, that's kind of a regular standing item that they can turn into and kind of get the up to the month, if you will, information that CEP has to share. Likewise, many of the slides I shared today came from those presentations that we've shared with the CAWCD board. So, thank you. I appreciate the chance to respond.
Thanks, Patrick. That's great to know. We also had a question about ADWR continuing to issue construction permits which require a showing of a 100-year water supply. That's a question we're going to defer for now. We'll check in with ADWR on that, and we'll go ahead and post that to our webpage once we have that information. With that, I think we're ready to hear from Chairwoman Marquez Peterson, if she is present. Good morning, Chairwoman.
Good morning.
Quickly, by way of introduction, Chairwoman Marquez Peterson was elected to the Arizona Corporation Commission in November of 2020. She was sworn in on January 4th, 2021, and elected by her fellow commissioners to lead the commission as chair. Prior to November 2020, Chairwoman Marquez Peterson was appointed to the commission by Governor Doug Ducey in May of 2019. And with that appointment, she became the first Latina to serve in a statewide office in the state of Arizona. She is the only commissioner who is not from Maricopa County, which is interesting. The chairwoman has been an entrepreneur in Arizona for many years and supports Arizona's small business community and economic development. She served as the president and CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber from 2009 until November of 2018. And she is the executive director of Greater Tucson Leadership, or she served as the executive director of Greater Tucson Leadership from 2005 to 2009. She is the former chair of the Pima Association of Governments Economic Vitality Committee and is currently the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners in Tucson and a member of the National Small Business Development Council Advisory Board for the U.S. Small Business Association. She has several other accolades on her record, and we are very grateful to have her with us today. So, Chairman Marquez Peterson, thank you very much for joining us, and please continue with your remarks.
No, thank you so much, Megan, and hopefully you can hear me okay. Thank you also to the Water Utility Association of Arizona for this invitation to make a closing statement. I've been listening carefully and really appreciate each of the utilities weighing in today. I want to begin by just stressing the importance of this conversation on communication messages on the shortage declaration. And it's evident that it's an important conversation with the more than, I think, 109 people we had on the Zoom call throughout this session. My takeaways that I've been listening to is certainly the importance of managerial discretion at each water utility. As a regulator, I don't want to infringe on management, and I think each utility is tasked with knowing the best way to reach their own customers. We heard during this session that utilities are receiving questions from their customers regularly and have prepared FAQ documents to create awareness of their programs, as well as many other communication tools that I think really best fit the communities they serve. I wanted to take a moment in this closing statement, though, to speak about recent action at our Corporation Commission that relates to this issue. As you know, we have great diversity of our water utilities. We regulate more than 300 of the private investor-owned water utilities, and many of them, more than 200, are very small. We classify as D and E. Our challenge will be, how do we institute the programs we heard about today to our smaller utilities throughout the state, serving a lot of rural Arizona? This past month, the Commission has instituted an annual water preparedness meeting to speak to this issue. We've also instituted a water task force focused on the impact of the drought curtailment on our water utilities. This task force, the intent is to include municipalities, ADEQ, ADWR, and want to mention here that if you would like to participate on this water task force, to be sure to email the Commission or email my office, and we'll put you in touch. I've also continued my work focused on our smallest water companies and recently filed a letter regarding efficiencies in rate cases. And you're most likely aware that there are more than 70 regulated water companies that have not had a rate case in the last 25 years, which speaks a lot to water challenges, water leaks, and those efficiencies that we'll address through some of the work we're doing on that task force. The Corporation Commission can play an important role in water conservation, and I was happy to hear that mentioned by all the companies on the call today. I want to highlight 4 particular areas that we can play an important role. Certainly, top of mind is rate design. We can use pricing signals to encourage less use and saving money. Secondly, it would be tracking and taking action on water loss. Obviously, if pumps and pipes are leaking, we're wasting water. So we need correct infrastructure in place, and we need to use WUAA and grants to supplement that. We also need regular checks of financial health of these companies and see rate cases for our regulated water utilities every 3 to 5 years, or what's appropriate. Thirdly, meters at home. I heard Sarah spoke about an average of maybe 10,000 gallons a year in leaks. Smarter meters to detect leaks. I think that's a great opportunity. I also wanted to mention opportunities with our water utilities like DSM, like energy efficiency and electric utilities. This could include promotion of low water use faucets and shower heads, tankless water heaters, promotion of new tools that are out there, new innovations. I think this is an important conversation we need to continue to keep having, and I look forward to furthering that conversation at the Corporation Commission. Thank you again for allowing me to make a few comments, and I will turn it back to Megan at this time. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Wonderful to hear from you. I appreciated your remarks. With that, I think we're wrapping up a little bit early today. I want to thank everybody for their participation, Chairwoman Marquez Peterson, all of our panelists, and Patrick for speaking with us today. Please be sure to go ahead and visit the www.wuaaz.org webpage. We'll post there the answer to the question that we had previously, as well as the toolkit resources that were mentioned throughout this presentation. With that, we'll give everybody about 5 minutes of their day back, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.